Welcome to the Fit Affiliate podcast, hosted by Tony Ronke and Lisa Hetherington, where we talk about behaviours and behaviour-based conversations as they apply to affiliate owners and coaches. And welcome back to another episode of the Fit Affiliate podcast. Much to Tony's delight, I did have to think about which podcast we were doing right then. But I am joined by my ever-faithful partner in crime, Tony. But today we are very excited to have the one and only Austin Malleollo in the hot seat. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you?
We are great, and all the better for having you. I think if anybody has been in the CrossFit space for more than a hot minute, if you don't know who Austin is, then you should probably remove yourself from the space. Austin's been everything from a games athlete to super coach, seminar staff, affiliate owner, programmer, HQ, and everything in between. You are a man who has indeed worn many hats. So today should be a fun chat.
Yeah, indeed. I'm excited to be a part of it. So thank you for having me.
All I was excited about was to hear Lisa's accent say Malleollo. That was the whole reason I wanted Austin on the podcast. That was my only motivation. We can close the episode out now.
Was it as you expected?
It was probably better. It was way more musical than I had imagined.
Yeah.
So
I've been practicing.
Right. A lot of vowels,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
We keep Lisa around because she puts the poetry in the words for us around here. I just have my scratchy Northeastern accent. But Austin's another Northeasterner, so 2 against 1 today, Lisa. So you're in trouble.
That's okay. I can handle it.
It's at the honorary, 2 rush for our own good Northeasterners.
Yes, this is so true. All the good things you said about Austin, though, Lisa, you left out probably the 2 most important ones. His deadlift box jump workout, which the world knows him for, and he definitely made skins popular way back in the day. He was the one. He gets all the credit for that.
I was reflecting on that the other day when we were just preparing for the podcast, and I remember the early, I started following the games in 2011, 2012, and that's definitely what Austin is most remembered for, I'm sure, not his athletic performances at all.
That's right. It's how we date ourselves. If you remember back into when we wore skins and Vibram 5 fingers and the deadlift box jump workout was a thing. That's you are saying something about yourself and how long you've been doing CrossFit.
That might actually be more powerful than the OG banner that has made itself known on all the walls it matters on. But much of the compression era, however cool Austin made those look, he motivated me. I wanted them and I bought them, and then I was missing all the athletic prowess that went underneath them. So I immediately covered them with shorts and t-shirts and was like, I'm wearing them because I'm going to get the benefits, but I just don't look nearly as good as Austin.
It's probably an image I didn't need today, Tony.
It's all good. It's all good.
Oh man, compression, those days.
But one of the things that's like always a common theme with, probably because we're so OG, 17 years, et cetera, like there's always a lot of old school people that come on here. But for us, it's probably one of the primary motivations. Naturally, the longer you've been in the space, the more, I suppose, known to some degree, but the more you ultimately know and you become aware of things. So there's definitely a theme unintentionally that most people come on here are like 10 plus year CrossFitters, right? But we're always fascinated with like the early years of it, but that wasn't really the primary reason we brought you on here. Lisa let the cat out of the bag with your accolade list there, but for sure, you have to be one of the more notable figures, at least in terms of, I'm not sure of anybody besides you who has done more in more parts of the space than you have. If there's a feature, a benefit, or an avenue of HQ or otherwise, I feel like Austin might have like grazed it at least for a second and been like, I'm just swinging through to check it out, guys. I'm gonna head through.
Yeah, it's funny because I think when I introduce myself to someone outside of the CrossFit space, or even in the CrossFit space now, I often end the introduction with, I'm relatively one-dimensional when it comes to CrossFit. I can talk a lot about CrossFit, but it's basically been my life for well over a decade now. So it's which I'm okay with, but don't ask me about my golf game on the weekends because I can add no value to that conversation.
I suspect you could probably be very good at golf too. I mean, if you applied yourself to it. I mean, but seminars tend to get in the way of our weekend activities, so I can respect why most of us don't really ever watch football. When most of us usually don't have weekend activities. Everybody's like, "Who's your football team?" I'm like, "Depends on which gym I'm teaching in, because that's pretty much what it comes down to."
Yeah, when I was on the road full time, gosh, I was on the road full time for 10 years, and I remember vividly like having those football is obviously always a topic of conversation, and I don't think I watched more than maybe whatever I saw in the airport on a Sunday night, headed home for 10 years. Maybe the first quarter of a Monday night football game before I fell asleep, but I think it's that those conversations were always short lived. Of like, I don't even know what's happening right now because when, like you said, when you're on the road, it's your mindset is so different.
Yeah, for sure. I think for basically 10 years of being on the road, I can pretty much tell you where I was watching or where the Super Bowl happened because I was invited to somebody's house in some random city where that happened. But I was like, I couldn't tell you who was playing, right? I was just like, this gym owner or this place or this random airport lounge is where I watched that game. But like, other than that, and I will tell you, there's few places on the planet that get as lively as an airport lounge on the Super Bowl weekend, or even like a big college game. Those are wild places to be.
Wild, and everyone's like friends. It's a very in an airport is a place where I think it actually highlights the lowest common denominator of humanity, unfortunately. But when people are watching sports, it's a very galvanizing moment where people just get excited about whatever's going on.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's a borderline, like it's almost like a religious sermon for most of those people in there. But it's one of those things you got to see it to experience it. To your point, I hope you're not in an airport during Super Bowl Sunday. You guys are home with your family watching it. But if you do happen to find yourself traveling, you should definitely find your way into a lounge because it is a party in there. The drinks are free. The people are crazy. I don't think anybody's running around naked in there, but I wouldn't put it past. And it depends on which lounge. If there was a Southwest lounge or like a Spirit lounge, there would definitely be naked people in there.
Yeah, that's right. That's not in United, but the Southwest. Yeah.
Probably not in Delta or United or maybe even American. But we're gonna edit this sound clip out because this has nothing to do with CrossFit. But I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
So anyways, back on track. One of the primary things that we love talking about with most of the people who come on here is the unconventional paths that everybody takes, right? Because like the beauty of CrossFit and you and I have talked about this personally in terms of the beauty of the affiliate model exists in its individuality and it's blank slate, it's creativity sort of space, but it's so much bigger than that, even in just the whole CrossFit space. And so our favorite guests are the ones that bring on people like yourself, EC, Pat, people who have taken sort of an unconventional path and they have, still done something. And if I'm freezing, it's also because I'm still on mother's internet here. So, but that was one of the things that we want to talk about the most with you. And then I know you got a lot of things going on, so we can dig into some of those other fun areas as well.
Yeah. When I think about what makes CrossFit so special and so unique is the ability for it, as cliche as it sounds, that, anyone can do CrossFit, but it's not for everybody. Right. And that, I think that can get played out, but I do think that there's a real important aspect to that is that with that type of opportunity for anyone to take part, but there are limiting factors, and those limiting factors are yourself.
Right.
So in turn, you get a community of people that we have now around the world, 13,000 affiliates, millions of CrossFitters that are like-minded for the most part, right? And I mean, if you've traveled around the world, you can walk into a CrossFit gym and you're like, oh yeah, this feels like I'm used to this, right? And not many places like that exist. And I do believe, to your point of that, like, how do we get there? What is the path? And what's the common denominator of affiliate owners, of coaches? And it's you could probably write a couple scripts and it work for almost our entire community.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is, something in life needs to have a catalyst for change. So I think, and what I mean by that is, when you think about when you got into CrossFit, when you opened your affiliate, when you decided to, whatever it might be, there's usually some type of shifting moment. And that's also what I love about CrossFit is when you talk to the origin story of people and how they found CrossFit. It was usually at a tipping point in life.
Yeah.
Specifically from affiliate ownership, because opening up a gym, beautifully, is relatively simple, right?
Mhm.
The barrier to entry is relatively low, in the sense of it doesn't take millions of dollars. It doesn't take, you could do it on your own. And 10 or 15 years ago, it could have been a garage, right? It was, if you had some PVC pipe and a pull-up bar, you could do it, right? And not only could you do it, you could thrive.
Right.
And with that, I think, for me, I think about when I started, I was in a really pivotal moment in my life, and when I found CrossFit. It's just funny how life works: right place, right time. Like, people are, and it's inexplicable almost, right? Where I got in a bunch of trouble, of course, right? Trouble. I was a troubled youth, and I was at home. I wasn't at the college I was, where I ended up graduating from, but I was personal training at a gym, and just someone said, "Hey, you've got to try this CrossFit thing out," right? And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Of course, the workout was Fran, right? So, and I was actually, someone asked me the question the other day of, like, introducing people to CrossFit and the stigmas, and I said, most of us made a lot of mistakes when we trained people early on, but I think the beauty of, often, like, early on, the people that were drawn to CrossFit were a unique group of people, right? Just because of that. And most of us needed to get crushed and destroyed for it to raise our eyebrow, be like, what is this, right?
So true.
Now, where we are today, thankfully we've evolved. We're in a place where we can have your grandma walk in the gym and have a wonderful experience, as well as, the meathead college student that needs to get crushed to raise their eyebrow, right? We can handle both populations now, and with ease. But I just got, because your ego of 95 pounds, that's super light, like all these things that you get, I just remember getting destroyed, but also equally as, like, baffled but intrigued. And that just set me down the road of, I got to try this thing out. And then that's what CrossFit.com, I started, like, it was just the counterculture, the articles, the videos, the music, the 10 ways to get kicked out of a traditional gym that Greg wrote. Like, I remember that article, and, like,
I lived it.
like,
yeah.
I mean, I was like, yeah, like, and then I bought Every Second Counts, because why wouldn't I want to not? I was like, I'll go to the CrossFit Games. Well, let me buy this movie and watch it, like, watch it every day. My girlfriend at the time, my now wife, was like, could tell you more about Matt Mursky and Dutch Lowry and Josh Everett than anyone should ever know about another human. So, and then, so I say that because, and then, needless to say, a year and a half later, had the opportunity to go to the CrossFit Games, had the opportunity to get on seminar staff, started coaching full time. And then from there, opened up a handful of affiliates and other things. But, like, CrossFit afforded you that opportunity to jump in. Not only it changed your life, and that's the beauty. It's life changing.
Yeah.
When something changes, and this is what's, I think it's not often said, is that we are purpose driven to help others, but make no mistake, CrossFit is driven out of the selfish drive because it works on you, and it changes your life, which is amazing. And you're like, and that's what then says more people need to do this, right? And so, and everyone you talk to is like, CrossFit changed my life, and I wanted to give that to others, right? And I think that's what makes CrossFit so unique, because there aren't many things that just work, and with nothing attached to it. Like, CrossFit just works.
Mm-hmm.
And
even done poorly, it works. Like,
well, I mean, and that's the beauty and the bane of it, right? I mean, and you could even say that, the beauty and the bane as we progress, because, implemented poorly, and it is so beautifully effective, right? And that's, and I think those are some of the challenges we have now currently, right? That but it's a good challenge to have, right?
Yeah.
Because it is so effective. I mean, if it were the other way around, like, this thing doesn't really work. You got to work really hard to make it work. Like, no, like
Right.
you just got to do this thing to work. I mean, yes, we have challenges. Yes, we have areas of improvement as, as a community, affiliates as CrossFit, but it's the best challenge, which also usually makes it the biggest. But there's beauty in that.
For sure. To your point too, right? About, you can travel around the world, and language barriers, cultures aside, it feels like home. You walk into a gym, the acrid smell of rubber smells the same. Like
That's right.
the workouts, regardless of what language you're in, they're probably written, still in English to some degree. And like, we all know 21:15:9 is the universal truth of pain. But that aside, but I think to your point too, one thing that is not really, that's probably not talked about that much, is that part of it where it's, so much of the community has collected so many people like us, right? Where we're also kind of altruistically driven to really make an impact on other people's lives. But no doubt about it, it's because, to your point, like, we all had a catalyst, right? We all had that pivotal moment, that shift. And but what I think is really, and it is something that is really worth highlighting, is that inside CrossFit affiliates, ownership, coaches, even just clients, it's probably like the biggest microcosm, the biggest masterclass of people putting on their mask first, right? Like, it's probably like the right thing to say post-COVID, right? But we all hear those examples of, you got to fill your own cup first because you can't pour from an empty cup and things like that. And like, what is unique to CrossFit is no matter how altruistic we all are and how motivated we are to help others, we're all putting our own best interests first, I hope, right? I mean, I assume that like most of us are still working out. We're still attempting to get better. Maybe we're not trying to make it to the games anymore or whatever that is, but like, we're still applying fitness, using fitness, and, and we're really becoming the best version of ourselves. And that can't really be understated as it applies to, what happens inside an affiliate every single day. And that is a thing that I just don't think gets talked about that much. And really, honestly, until you just said it, it's something that's really probably never been even mentioned on this podcast. So high five on that one. But it's powerful. That's huge. And I mean, it can't be overlooked.
Yeah. And I think you said something that's really important not to overlook, is that I do think that a trap that a lot of affiliate owners fall into, I think a lot of adults in general fall into, is when you start to forget about yourself and like, because you are, you're truly in service of other things, whether it's your family, your kids, your business. And when you stop, actually taking care of yourself, doing the thing, things start to unravel. Right. And, and what makes CrossFit so unique is that you do have to live the program.
Yeah.
Right. And living and I remember, articulating this at seminars, and oftentimes I would get a younger, more insecure coach saying, "Are you saying that I need to do muscle ups in order to be a coach?" I said, "No, you don't need to have muscle ups to be a coach. But what you need to be doing is work when muscle ups come up, working on them. How are you scaling them? What do you like? You need to be living the program, because," and I said, in fact, you doing that makes you a more relatable and better coach than someone next to you that has muscle ups, because you're the person that's going to make everyone in the class feel comfortable, because you're doing it with them.
For sure.
Like that, it's a really important aspect, and that's where that's the one aspect I love about CrossFit, is how accessible it is. You could have the fittest person in the world work out next to someone, and they're do the same workout, that it's their first day. And I remember seeing this happen at my gym all the time. We had a lot of the best athletes drop in, and they would take class. And, if you were someone that didn't really know what CrossFit was, you just walk into a class, you just see a bunch of people working out.
Right.
Right. It's what it looks like. I mean, just a bunch of people working out. So, all different shapes and sizes and ages and you name it. And that's, and you have a professional athlete next to, someone that just started, and in the right, and done correctly, it's just a beautiful expression. And that's something that is, when you lose that as an owner, when you lose that as the person setting the example, oftentimes you see things crumble behind that, right? Where, because you are a reflection of that in your community. And I remember, I remember when I instituted the rule when I was running Reebok CrossFit One that every coach there, you had to take class. You could do whatever you wanted to, but if you like beyond it, but you just always had to take class with your people. And I remember when the minute I instituted that, I immediately said to myself, why didn't I do this? Hindsight's 2020 type of thing. It changed our coaching staff. It changed our gym, and it was the single most important simple rule change that we made. And it's the first thing. It's like, if you don't do that, you're missing a massive opportunity for yourself, but also for your community to set the example.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much in all of that, right? Like, wow, this could be a 4-hour podcast episode on that little nugget alone, right? It's what is so very cool about CrossFit is also, it's kind of like the bane and the benefit at the same time, again, right? Is the elegance of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do for sure, you find yourself in that weird spot, no matter how long it takes you as a CrossFitter. We all end up doing the same thing, right? Like, you get into it because the elegance pulls you in, right? You're like, man, how did that just happen, right? Like, what the fuck was that, right? And then you come on the backside, and then time leads to one thing or another, and we'll spare everybody the consequences of why they do it, but we always overcomplicate it, right? We start layering, we start peppering, we start sprinkling some little bit of stuff on there, making it our own thing, and then and what ends up coming out of that, to your point, like, you have to stick to the program, even if you don't do the program. Right, you're still to some degree going to benefit from some proximity to CrossFit, but no doubt about it, the further we get from the elegance and that sort of core kernel that is, the L1, it is the methodology, et cetera, like, things get a little bit more gray. And right, so what ends up always happening in everybody's duration, and maybe a lot of people listening to this aren't really there yet because they're probably still in the, intervals and all these other things that they're layering on now. But like, you get 10 years into it and you're right back to, your 20-minute Metcons and under, and like all these things. And you're like, I might actually be fitter than I was when I was doing 2 to 3 hours. And to your point, and in terms of like everybody having to live it, I think you got to go through that part of it too, where you just have to like, you find it and then you lose it and then you relearn it. And then you're like, this is the thing. It was never all that stuff in the middle.
Gosh, it's funny because I feel like me personally, with where I'm at in life, I have a really unique perspective on CrossFit for me, and really what where I started CrossFit when I was in my very early 20s, and then I competed for 10 years. I found CrossFit and I competed at the games within 1 year of doing CrossFit. Back then it was very different, where that was possible, and that was my, I would work out multiple times a day. I would, you name it, right? And also had the luxury of starting at a time where volume and on all these things, this wasn't even a thing yet. So as complexity and volume became more apparent, we were testing and experimenting. It was a natural ramp up. It was just natural progression, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was because of what we were learning and trying and pushing the envelope. The sport was so new. Whereas now you enter into it, it's overwhelming. And I respect and understand that for young athletes of how, it is, I mean, I couldn't imagine, right? Compared to when I started CrossFit in 2009, I go on .com, I'd do a workout, and then, I'd read a journal article about, something I'm not good at, and I'd do that, right? It's like, oh, like, I don't know how to snatch or clean and jerk. I should probably go to my Olympic lifting seminar. Oh, I really suck at these things. I should maybe do more of them, right? So that's how it started. And now now I look where I'm at, and I work out. I work out at home now, mostly 5 a.m. and I'm usually out of the gym before 5:35, 5:40. Work out. I usually do something 7 days a week because I personally enjoy it. Some days are what I call check the box day, right?
Sure.
Just for me, because I really love just working out or doing something. And if I'm lucky, once a week I maybe get like something in the afternoon, but and I'm still able to do a lot of the things I was able to do. Definitely not as strong and all other stuff, but I mean, about 20, 30 pounds off most of the lifts I was able to compete when I lift when I was competing. And it's so simple and easy. I don't really like, and not to come across as like dismissive, but I don't really care. Right.
Right.
Like I work out and it's fun and it's a blast. And I was banged up from 10 years of competing like anyone would be, but I'm like now, there's nothing really that bothers me. I feel good. If I do a dumb workout, I'm sore like every other human in the world. Right. Like all those things. And it's that notion. And so what do we do? Like we just do, I just do CrossFit. Honestly, I just, I go on what's on CAP, cross affiliate programming, and I look at that and I'm like, oh, that's good. Or, hey, it's 5 a.m. So I'm going to switch that out with this because I don't want to do that at 5 a.m. Right. Like, and I give myself the excuse of like everyone's sleeping in my house. So obviously I can't drop a barbell and wake up my house. Right. So, but that's as simple as it is. And it works, and consistency and intensity really does matter. Right. And I think that's the thing of like, what's the easiest thing to lose sight of is intensity, right? Because usually with complexity and with all these other things, and you become less intense, right?
Right.
And we know intensity gets you the results. And you also know that variance is not sexy, right? Variance sometimes is frustrating, doing things that you're not good at. And that's the beauty of an affiliate as well. I work out with 2 guys every morning on Zoom. We've been doing it for 3 years. We started in COVID when we had to do it before our kids woke up, and we never stopped. And the beauty of that is one, intensity, because I don't like to lose to my friends. So who would have thought? Greg, as he said, said 15 years ago, a whiteboard. Men and women will die for points.
Yeah.
And then from there, I would always pick things that I would want to do. So 2 other people is a good balance to the Malleollo bias, right?
Yeah.
And that's as simple as it needs to be. And I look at the guys I trained with last year, like I like age group, they're going to the games, got to semis, and we're literally training 30 minutes a day, not even like
right.
And and I remember an article, I think, or maybe Greg said it was like, CrossFit was built for the exercise minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that quote.
Yeah.
And I remember like during my training for the games, I was like, I didn't understand it, right? Because I was so caught up in the specificity of games training. And then now as I pull back and have a different perspective, I'm like, yeah, like this is great because, as an adult that has a kid, wife, job, like I don't have the time. Quite frankly, I don't want to work out 5 hours a day at all. Right.
That's the one.
Right. Like I like working out. I love it. But like, I'd rather, play magnet tiles if with my 4-year-old, because that's more important to me than getting a back squat in, so I think that I couldn't agree more with that. And you do need to go through your own journey, right, Tony? I think that's like, I've never met an affiliate owner that says I'm going to screw my people up. Like I'm going to really I'm going to give them a shitty program and mess them up. Like, no, like I truly believe that every affiliate owner and coach is you're curious, you're contrarian, and you're looking to push the envelope a little bit. And with that, you go astray. Just don't let your ego get in the way to accept that maybe something that you did wasn't the right way. And, nothing is Hammurabi's code, right? You can always erase a whiteboard. It's not written in stone.
And it's funny, when I was talking to somebody just yesterday about when I first started programming for the affiliate versus how I ended programming the affiliate, I'm like, fuck, how did I not kill somebody? Like it was, I remember a GHD kettlebell swing and front squat workout, like, okay, completely cooking everything. I'm like, wait, and then you learn and you evolve, but you didn't set out to do it to cook people, but if you don't evolve, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's it. There's even to Austin's point, like even the affiliate owners who are out there who are like, I'm going to crush somebody. They're still doing it with the best interest of people in mind, because they're like, this is going to be the thing that's going to make them better. But like, I don't really think that those people are even really out there. I do think, everybody has their own coming of age story. And I do find that part fascinating. And we love talking about it with all of the people. And no doubt about it, the coolest part of CrossFit is that no matter really what you want to do with this thing, there's a place for you inside the ecosystem that everybody seems to find themselves into. And like, through the conversation, which is the $1 Million Coach podcast, like that's one of the big ones for like the coaches out there, is really just finding your voice, finding your niche. And I don't know of really any place, any microcosm or industry that exists much like the CrossFit space where that can happen, but as well as it happens in CrossFit. And I think what is always fascinating to me is that it always comes back to elegance, right? It always comes back to that simplicity part of the conversation. And even no matter what you're talking about or where your niche is or where your voice is, like you find these, obviously my niche comes from the gymnastics world. But even that is taking something that is so massively complicated. And my gift is to be able to make it super, super simple for a room full of people, right? And what's fascinating to me about that is it applies the affiliate journey, or affiliate ownership journey, is how quickly we all tend to want to make it more complicated because we think that's going to make it more valuable, right? And you see this over and over and over again. And this is a conversation I was just having in terms of like the biggest threat that faces CrossFit is that if we all forgot how simple it was, right? And I think that, but I also think to some degree, you almost have to appreciate how simple it is, make it complicated to really truly appreciate the power of that simplicity, so you get back to it. Right? To your point, obviously the white in my beard does not hide my age anymore, so I'm not getting any younger. But respectfully, I still get to do things that many young people do. Like what I jokingly say all the time, like nothing defines my fitness for me as well as when I crash the shit out of my mountain bike and I get up like, no 42-year-old should have gotten up from that as well as I just got up from that and then finished riding my bike, right? But like people are always like, what do you do for fitness? And I'm like, I do a lot less fitness, but I do a lot more with it these days. And I think that is another piece of it. It does come from the coming of age story where you're just like, it's that last line in Fitness in 100 Words, which is regularly learn and play new sports. And for the affiliate owners out there, the better you can get your community to really, truly understand that one, the more valuable you're going to make that whole ecosystem. And I think like it is part of that whole coming of age story, but it is that one realization that you could probably save people a lot of time with, but maybe they do need to live through it themselves. I don't really know.
Yeah. And I think there's an important difference is that, and I think this is where I think affiliate owners and coaches struggle is, most people don't care. What I mean by that is like most people that come to our gym, they just want to look good naked and they want results, right? Like whatever that results is. But like, now the beautiful thing is that we're performance driven, is that we can give real purpose behind coming to the gym as opposed to, chasing these esoteric non-objective goals. Like, no, we can chase performance times and loads and reps. But, for most people, they actually like that last line, regularly learn and play new sports. If we extrapolate that out even bigger, prepare for life, right? Prepare for whatever life might throw at you. And, even further, just navigate life pain-free and do what, play with your kids and be able to engage in whatever life activity it is and it not even be a thought. Right. And so with that in mind, I think understanding, okay, if this is the makeup of my gym, then who am I serving? Right.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that because it's really easy to get caught up into is like most people in your gym don't really care about their deadlift or their pull-ups or how, like, they just don't, right? Like they'll come and do what they're told because they want to get a good workout in. They enjoy, like, there's all these things, right? But the average member comes to a gym, 3 times a week based off like that's the average that we see. Yeah. So think about that. One, right? Like 3 times a week. Awesome. Got it. And most of them are showing up late and leaving early because life is pulling them in different directions, but they're there, right? How do we serve them? And I think that we, as the CrossFitters, as the coaches, as the affiliate owners, can often get stuck in and I remember doing this. Like, I was such an idiot. I just like myself of like, it's the program. You got to do the program. So and again, one of the biggest shifts that changed the complexion of the gym was I started to just care less about the workout, the program, and just care about who, and not to come across like I didn't before, but like care about the people
Yeah.
when they walked in the gym. So, and I remember this because at Reebok CrossFit One, when we moved to the city, I was managing the whole fitness facility. So we had a whole traditional gym, and there was 3 studios and all that. So we would see every person in the company that would come, right? It was really cool. You know, many came to the CrossFit gym, but many went upstairs to whatever. And I would see members walk in and scurry upstairs.
Hmm.
And I say scurry because they did not want me to see them, right? Because they knew that I was going to, you know, get on them for not coming to the CrossFit gym, or, you know, say something. And I remember I stopped someone one time, like, "Hey, what's up? Like, where are you going?" Oh, they're like, "Oh, you know, you got me." I was like, "What do you mean I got you?" "Oh, I just don't want to do this workout today. I just want to go up and I want to turn my mind off. I don't want to think. And I know that this workout, I'm gonna have to think about a lot of stuff, you know, because I gotta like actually move well, as opposed to like get on a bike or whatever." And I said to myself, I was like, "Man, I dropped the ball. Like like if I didn't have this opportunity, this member wouldn't have come to the gym."
For sure.
Right. And that's how it's, and I would have started to push my members away, as opposed to after I said, "Listen, just show up. I'll always take care of you. You tell me what headspace you're in, and I'll take care of you. Like whether I take class, change the class, scale it, do something completely different." I said, "How about this? Go grab a sled, push it down and back, and do 10 burpees. Do that for 10 rounds. That'll put you on another planet, and it'll take you about 40 minutes." And they're like exactly what I wanted. Great. Like and then people started coming back. I started seeing people more consistently, and all it was me meeting them where they were as a human being, as opposed to me expecting them to be where I wanted them to be. And that was a huge shift for me in that perspective. And that's what people are like. People are coming there to take care of themselves, right? And today's workout doesn't matter. I remember when Boz told me that years ago. You know, he was like, "Today's workout doesn't matter." Like, think about it. Today's workout literally does not matter.
Yeah.
That mindset's so liberating when you are in today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, for example, I had to drop my car off this morning. Didn't get a chance to get the workout, and you know, you get hung up on it. Even still to this day, I'm like, yeah, I'll get it done later. And then you're like, you know what? I'll just ride my bike. Whatever, it's fine. And like, there is some liberation there. But I'm glad you brought up the Reebok thing. For one, fantastic opportunity, and I did get to see it, and I've been in there many times. But like, what I was gonna say earlier, I was gonna bring up Reebok because we were talking about that journey and like really just being able to step back and see it from the outside. Because I think one of the things that ends up happening a lot for us as CrossFitters is that we tend to live very, very kind of self-absorbed in the ecosystem, right? We almost forget what it's like to be outside of it. And you really, truly forget what it's like to not be a CrossFitter, to be intimidated by a CrossFit, like whatever that looks like. And, you know, one of the things that I was going to say about Reebok is that you always had a fantastic opportunity, because one of the cool things about, and that's when you were talking about, you know, athletes next to other people. And like, one of the coolest things I remember seeing at Reebok was just watching an entire workforce descend upon a gym on regular occasions. Really truly puts it into perspective just how many different types, because like as a CrossFit affiliate owner, you only really see your classes in their gym clothes, right? Like you don't really pay much attention to the clothes that come in. But like at Reebok, you had this fascinating thing where you watched them kind of come out of like almost like come out of their cave and into the gym, and you were just like, you're not the male guy, right? Like, you know, and so like it was a very cool thing. But to your point, it is such a valuable thing because you did get to see, you know, their other behaviors, because you had, you know, multiple floors where they were trying to avoid the gym, which is happening in an affiliate every single day. And it is so true. And it's something that we talk about here so much, is that like, you know, cueing isn't coaching, communicating is coaching, right? And like, and it's funny because most people are very caught up in, you know, points, performance, teaching, cueing, correcting, all those things. And they're absolutely part of it. But you might want to just start communicating with them and like sitting down and talking until, like your point, like if they realized how many people were skipping their gym and going upstairs hypothetically, right, they would probably be like, I got to sit down with more Teds, right? Like, because these people are just not in here. And so it was a fantastic opportunity for you, but you know, they should know it's happening on a regular basis. But I think the coolest part of coaching, and truly it took me forever to figure it out, right? Like was like sitting down and honestly, I don't even know if when it really even clicked to me, but like, if you're not actually communicating with them, and talking to them about the things that are going on in life. Like you can increase the length of their life, no doubt about it. Their mortality is going to absolutely improve, but without communication, vitality doesn't seem to improve. And it's like, that's the missing piece of so many coaches' roles, is really just giving people back that quality of life, not the quantity as well. And that just comes from conversations, because these people don't know what they're doing when they're missing it. Right. And they're just like, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And like, you can easily affect that conversation much more valuably, much more impactfully, and really just develop a much better relationship. And it's funny that you brought up the Reebok, because I wanted to say it earlier.
Yeah, it's I would say that, like you said, a really great opportunity, because it was also a really unique test, right? Where we had the ability to, we arguably one of the best coaching staffs under one roof with some of the staff we had there, right? I mean, which was, and then from there we were zero barriers to entry to go to a CrossFit gym that was arguably one of the most well equipped, right? So when you think about it, a non-real world scenario, right, from normal affiliates, and we were able, and even still, it's the beauty of still faced with the same challenges affiliates are faced with, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of, misunderstanding or misconceptions of what CrossFit is, journey. I remember people would, I was there for over 10 years, and people worked there longer than I had been there, stepping foot into the gym to try it out for the first time 8 years in.
Right.
Like why? Like, and it was like, think about that. Like, at what point in year 8, after we'd been there, after they, that they decided to come try CrossFit, like, these were such intriguing questions that I was able to dig into and learn more about, where there was nothing holding this person back for 8 years. It was free. I mean, the facilities were beautiful, like, you name it, right? Like, and gosh, when we even moved to the headquarters, we paid people essentially to work out. Like, we had an incentive-based check-in program, right?
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite things that we created. It's like, yeah, you paid, but like, if you checked in 10 times, your gym membership was free. So creating this incentive-based program, and though these were the opportunities that allowed me to really learn about our ecosystem and affiliates, and and people. And here's, you were mentioning it. Oftentimes I get asked, what's the most important attribute a coach can have? And I truly believe at this point, in looking back and running coaching development programs and all the gyms, it's just emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Is the single most important attribute a coach can have, because everything else is relatively and easily learned.
Mm-hmm.
I can take anyone and make you better at teaching, seeing, and correcting.
Yeah.
Now, yes, some people have a better eye than others. It's a skill, right? But you can hone a skill, and there's just some people that are more gifted than others, like in anything. But for the most part, you get any coach to the point where they can teach effectively, they can see gross and subtle movement form faults, and then they can correct short, concise, actionable manner.
For sure.
But emotional intelligence, my goodness, I mean, you could even say emotional intelligence is the most important attribute that a leader, a manager, an executive can have as well, right? Yeah. Like, out of all the other things, like, of who would have thought, of course, then that would be the most important skill set for a coach or affiliate owner, because you're basically all of those things, right? So and it's really hard, because like, there's no textbook that's going to help you with that. You need real interactive feedback on how you're handling a scenario and how it could have been done better and what you missed, by someone that has that skill. It's that is the I would say the hardest skill to develop, because of how you develop it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would 100% support that. And I think a lot of people agree with that too. It's one of those things. One of the best, probably the best part about CrossFit is the access to the training team, right? Like, there is no shortage of knowledge, right? So like, you could quite literally give me somebody with zero knowledge, and in under a year are probably one of the best coaches, in the rest of the industry, maybe not in the CrossFit space, but like, and so to that part, but what can you do with it? How do you impart? How do you apply? How do you implement that knowledge with other people? And you do see this so often. Here we we tend to refer to it as influence, just your ability to effectively give to people and be able to influence their behavior, get them to make better decisions. And that is a piece of it that is just so, so pivotal to the conversation. Yeah, there's a lot to that there too. And one of the things too, kind of to circle back to the other part of it, which is like the elegance part of it, is, and in your coach's journey, when you be trying to become a better coach, we all remember the Glassmanism, complication or obfuscation is the curse of the novice, right? So like we all have done it. We all opened our mouth and made it very complicated. And then at some point we hopefully understand that like the more simple I can make my coaching, the more effective I can be. But for some reason, it's not so clear a lot of times to the affiliate owner who is trying to continually layer on the complications into the actual affiliate. I'm like, just make it as simple as you make the floor, and I promise you it's going to get more valuable. And I think to that point, that even in itself also requires some degree of influence and emotional intelligence, right? Because in order for you to really truly understand the value of elegance and simplicity, you have to really understand interaction with other people, right? Like what makes it matter, what makes people motivated, what makes people, to interact with things. And without that, you can kind of live in that vacuum where you're just like, just do hard things, put the weight vest on, pick up, and not that there's anything wrong with those things, but you're going to miss the point, I guess, is my point in that one.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, I always say like, why do you think people do that? Why do you think people major in the minors? Why do they make things more complex? Affiliate owners and coaches. And, I think if you were to, and Tony, you work with a lot of gyms. I'm sure you see this a lot. Why are affiliate owners doing that? What are they trying to do?
Right.
And I would venture to say that they're trying to separate themselves. Right. Well, this is the thing. Right. This is the thing that we do this because this is what makes us special, unique, or different than the gym down the road. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the root cause of it is actually a good thought process. Right. Thought process is, I need to deliver a really great product and something that is really special because this is my business. And like, I like that thought, right. But then it gets misguided along the way. And I think a lot of it comes down to this point of this, this virtuosity and elegance, right? It's scary.
Yeah.
And you have to be confident in your ability, right?
Oh yeah. It's no place to hide.
That's right. And I think it's like, well, because, when you ask a gym, and I'd love your perspective on this with what you do, is what makes you unique? Right. And I've asked many gyms this, what makes you unique? Yeah. Right. What's the answer that you get? Like when you ask that question?
I mean, we ask them the same question too. It's, why does your affiliate need to exist? Right. And no doubt about it, just the same as I think you and I actually talked about this, you do get the same level of, talking points, recitation, right? Where it's like, constantly they start spitting out CrossFit's reasons. And I'm like, well, that's why that exists. But like, why does yours exist? And truly, they don't know. And I think this was the conversation you and I had, is that I think the biggest piece that's missing to most affiliates is that they lack that mission, that vision, and that identity. Right. And like, to your point, as like the layering on the complexity that makes me individual, it could, sure, that might be your thing, right? Maybe you are, maces and things like that are just, different sort of apparatus. But, the unique advantage that affiliates have is the simplicity and the elegance of the model. And where I think that they all, because they tend to live more in a vacuum, and we do tend to bury ourselves in the ecosystem that is CrossFit. We forget what it's like to be outside of it. That, like, you are unique because you're simple, but you don't need to compete with the other affiliates because there's a million other people who still need to come in that gym, right? And that unique advantage that pulled us all in, that suckered us all in, that did maybe beat us up in the beginning or whatever that was, that catalyst that caused change, that came from its simplicity, not its complication, right? And like that, to that point, they're like, oh. And so that's what the entire first part of the entire phase when clients work with us is getting them to a point where they do have to stand up in front of their peers and defend why their affiliate needs to exist, but it takes weeks to restore some of that, right? Because you got to get them all the way back to that catalyst, all the way back to that thing. And then they're like, oh, that's what matters. Not how I had to do CrossFit differently. Because that's what ends up happening. They distract themselves with that part. They're like, I'm going to make CrossFit differently. CrossFit's perfect. Don't touch that part. Right? Like, leave that part alone. Focus on how you can do everything else differently. And that part is important.
It's the abundance mindset, right? As opposed to the scarcity mindset of, it's like, I mean, and because it also, and to the point of, like why, it's, the argument is like, oh, like, well, but not everyone needs to do Olympic lifts. Like, not everyone needs to be, it's like, well, and it's just funny because it's like, well, when you start to keep things simple, you really understand like what we're doing and why we should be doing it. So yeah, like, you're going to scale everyone when they're walking in the gym, and it's going to look a little different. And if you really have that awareness of your people, you're taking care of them before the intro on the whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
They feel confident because you assess that this person looks nervous and petrified, right? You, to your point, something I wish I did better when I owned my gyms and was coaching was you'd have check-ins with your members. And you understand their goals, you understand their fears. So you maybe send the group of athletes that have said that they hate barbells or snatches an email, like, hey, we're going to snatch this week, and this is what we're going to do for you. Okay. You sent them a preemptive email to get them in the gym to tell them that you're just going to touch the PVC pipe and we're going to dumbbell, right? Because that's what would have happened if they came, but they didn't come because you didn't know. So like, what could you have done beforehand? And these are things. And now we talk about retention. Now they're a member that stays. Right. Mm-hmm. Now they remember that gets more results because they're coming more consistent. They get more results. They stay because no one's going to leave if they're getting their results.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And it's funny, like, in my gym, I had so many members who like, I didn't come because, I didn't know X, Y, Z. And it's like, every time you come, I'm going to scale you. But because they didn't know the details up front, they were like, oh, I was just too scared or whatever. Right. But I'm always going to take care of you. Yeah, but they still don't know. They still, they still have that thing that stops them, like taking that step over the line.
That's right.
There's a lot of opportunity in getting back to, what is that the L1 kernel, right? Just getting back to the simplicity and remembering that CrossFit's not about complication. And what I think is so important about that as it applies to the affiliates, in the abundance conversation, is that I get it. It's easy to get into the scarcity mindset when we're all competing for the same market share of the same number of CrossFitters, but that was never the mission, right? The mission was to bring more people into the church, so to speak, right? Like, that was the point, not to compete for the same number of people who are already doing CrossFit. Like, we tell people all the time, like, CrossFitters are the worst customers. You don't want them. They're not in pain anymore, right? Like, they don't really want to pay you a bunch of money to solve their problems because, frankly, life is really pretty good for them, right? Like, we need the other people who are still afraid to come in the gym, who don't know you're there, who don't know the benefits of this. And like, and to the point of simplicity, when you do break the model because you want to be different, right? Really what you want to do is hide your insecurities and your inability to coach these complex movements. But like, that's a rant all on its own. But when you do break apart the model and you do make it complicated, do you know how many other places you can go get that same type of shit workout, right? Like, I'm not even going to name them because they don't deserve any more marketing credit, but like, there's a million competitors to the affiliate model who provide a shit product, but a very complicated and albeit very hard workout. So like, if your only metric is like, that took my breath away, made me sweat a lot, like, you're going to have a problem. But I can tell you there's nobody else, zero other gyms on the planet who can offer you these simple stimulus that you will find in a CrossFit affiliate. That's your unique advantage. And the more you understand that, it's worth a fortune. But you got to have confidence.
And I think that's a really good final point of like, really, there are so many good alternatives out there to getting a hard workout.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, making a hard workout's not hard. And what these other businesses are probably the best at is making an environment that is fun and exciting to be in. Community, no one makes as good as community as CrossFit, but you want an experience, you go to these other places and you'll have an experience. right?
You
They're the
hook up
best
all
in
sorts
the
of
game.
gadgets and fun and scoreboards
Right.
and
And
lights. It's just a damn
exactly.
nightclub.
And so make no mistake that like that's and that can't and that's not our game, and we don't really want it to be. And but what we want, and I just think oftentimes again, you know, when I was at Reebok and we had 3 studios with you know all you know you name it, they were there. And you know, well, one of the biggest separators is, and not to get too into the weeds here at the end, but it's just simple range of motion and movement in which life requires, and therefore coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what would separate one gym from another is your athletes knowing and trusting that they are getting coached, they're getting challenged, they're also in turn getting a great workout, because that's really hard, right? It's easy to coach people at low intensity with no weight, right? Which is great, and you got to start there. It's really hard to keep people moving well at relative intensity at some type of load. And those are the things that make our program really special. Just think about the squat. Obviously, it's in our world cliche, but you just think about the ability to keep your heels down, your knees tracking over your toes as you're back and down, and maintaining a lumbar curve. Like, these are things that you don't see in any other program, and yet people are squatting. Yet we teach a very simple mechanic squat, and it's literally life changing, right? That's our separator. And then getting people to understand that, right? And those are the things of just that simple piece. If you said, Austin, what are you going to teach this person on day one? I'll teach you how to air squat. And that's it. I'll spend 20 minutes teaching an air squat, and you know,
change your life.
If you're a beginner, it'll change your life, right? If you've never done that before, right? So I think those things are, and you want those people in your gym. Like you said, getting the people that have done CrossFit before, those are easy, right? Like, and no one's, I mean, again, with all due respect, who cares? They're going to sign up for your gym no matter what you do. They're going to come in, they're going to say, well, how much is the membership? And they're going to show up 5 minutes early with their knee sleeves on and a headband on, and great. Like, they're awesome.
Like, they're going to show up with their skins on.
That's right. That's right. But you want the person that drives by every day, that raises an eyebrow, but hasn't come in yet. You want that person. And, you know, and that's part of our job at CrossFit, is to help raise the eyebrow enough for them to email you or call you and help you in that process. That's, you know, it's a big goal of ours, is to help those people get a little more of a push to get into the gym. So it's, because that's our goal. That's our mission, is, you know, hear Don talk about, we want 30 million CrossFitters. We're not, like, that's a serious number. Yeah. And we say that because we believe that's a realistic place for us to be. Yeah. And our affiliates need to be stewards of that. So, I mean, and we're just giving people their life back, right? It's one of those things. That's right. And well, cool. I mean, I think that's the most powerful way to end this thing. Although I really want to keep going, because there's a whole lot more things. So, like I say this to all of you guys, but like, you're coming back on, like it or not. We might just have to hold it again. But I'd love to. I appreciate the time.
No, I appreciate you coming on. I mean, you are a man of many voices, many hats, many talents, and I know that you have graced a lot of different lives. So hopefully they get the chance to hear from you again through this medium. But I think that for everybody else, they also ultimately know who you are. So I think them getting a bigger oculus into, you know, how Austin's mind thinks and communicates and articulates is something that could be better shared more often. So we're happy to do it. And we're happy that you came on here.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Oh, pleasure is all ours, I assure you, my friend.
Very much. I've actually was just thinking, I've heard you speak a lot, Austin, in different podcasts and platforms, but today I've heard you say some things that I haven't really heard you cover in those ways. So much gold for our, you know, immense amount of listeners and followers that'll grab onto this. But, you know, I appreciate, you know, you sharing that with us today. So that was awesome, mate.
It's because he's wearing a super skins underwear underneath there. It's got his ring.
That's right. That's right.
Vibrams on under the desk.
Why he sits up so straight, because that's
a secret weapon. That's right.
All right, guys. Thanks for your time.
Okay.